same kind of thing happen all the time, but this is the most ridiculous setup we have this close to WrestleMania, going back to all of these injuries, which unfortunately had to happen. And if not for these injuries, probably we would be looking at this in the way we are for WrestleMania 32, which just seems to be the most disastrous setup of all time for a WrestleMania of the previous 31. I'd go for Triple H versus Sting any day over Triple H versus Roman Reigns is what unfortunately we're faced with, and it's either that or The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon. A WrestleMania headlined by the McMahons that should be being headlined by the League of Nations. I've been extremely high in supportive of the League of Nations in recent weeks because I think these are four incredible talents who do a really great job representing international countries like Russia, the UK, Ireland. It's amazing what you guys are doing for WWE, and I think you deserve to be over more than what you are, especially with how you've all been former champions at some point in your career, either WWE or Intercontinental US champions, whatever the case may have been, whatever status you had at WWE at a point in time. You had Wade Barrett, of course, coming in from NXT, of course, as the winner of the first season of NXT, immediately feuded with John Cena and could have been world champion at this point in time, went on to win an Intercontinental title after breaking away from the Nexus, and we saw so many metamorphoses of King Barrett, of course, and this is so, unfortunate that things have to be happening the way that they are for him, especially when it seemed like they were going to be pushing him. Rusev, who came in, was undefeated for a number of months, went on to win the U.S. Championship, was undefeated until losing his first match to John Cena. There's no exception for this kind of thing, and it should not be happening. There's really no excuse for what's happening here with the League of Nations, and especially Sheamus. Let's get something going for someone who came in within 3 or 4 months of his arrival and won the WWE Championship from John Cena in a tables match, assisted by Wade Barrett, who was leading the Nexus at that point in time. But again, Sheamus went on to become champion and went on to present himself as one of the most worthy champions that we had seen in a really long time, and he was really nervous in the first few promos he had as WWE champion. There was a lot of conversation that I had with a lot of people that I interviewed about how Sheamus was going to be nervous as champion. Undoubtedly he was, and I think it goes back to a lot of pressure that, of course, WWE Creative had this close out of WrestleMania, taking the League of Nations out of the main event the way they did when they obviously were headed towards the main event of WrestleMania, or in some kind of a 8-man tag team match, which obviously would have been the case if they would have been in a bigger match at WrestleMania. And if they do have an 8-man tag team match, rather than facing the team of John Cena and 3 other individuals, they will be facing the Social Outcast, which is something that doesn't interest me at all. It wouldn't surprise me none if the Social Outcasts were the ones who got over. But initially what I thought would have been left for the League of Nations to do, if they weren't in the main event or factored in to Triple H and Reigns, it would have been Team Cena, with John Cena captaining a team, probably with the Usos and somebody else, probably even Roman Reigns, facing the League of Nations, with obviously Team Cena getting over off of Cena's return because of an injury, of course, which is going to unfortunately be sidelining Cena for over 6 months, and we'll probably be waiting months before we do see Team Cena facing the League of Nations. But something has to get the League of Nations over. Something has to happen for them because they are still relevant, and I know the fans of the League of Nations still exist out there. So I'm throwing it out to all of you guys to get in on the conversation who probably feel the same way I do about Sheamus. And I'm not going to cover up or deny the fact that I'm a huge Sheamus fan. I was more of a fan of the face Sheamus than the fan favorite Sheamus. I thought that was awesome, making Sheamus into a fan favorite, especially when he was teaming with John Cena. He was really over and could have been WWE champion for a very long time. It was beyond me why they didn't give him more reigns as champion, or more of a chance to really catapult his career. He was U.S. champion, he lost to Rusev, and then WWE take him off storylines and then bring him back as this Hawk character, and I don't really think the Hawk character was near as effective as the original Sheamus. I'm more of a fan of the original Sheamus, and I miss the original Sheamus, because the original Sheamus got into programs with Randy Orton and John Cena, something that this Sheamus did not do until he formed this alliance with 3 other international wrestlers from Mexico and Russia in the way of Rusev and Alberto Del Rio. It wasn't until he formed an alliance and became the voice of the League of Nations with the new entrance music and sort of being repackaged that more fans started taking him seriously, with the chance of "you look stupid." Now, believe me when I say this, Sheamus is far from stupid, especially with the opinions of these international fans that I talk to all the time on Facebook and Twitter. They beg to differ with the opinions of the American fans, but that's what wrestling has been about for years. It's been about this diversity factor that really factors in all the time. So many fans like Sheamus, so many fans of the 100%, probably 50, the 100% of fans don't really appreciate what Sheamus is doing, but that's where diversity really plays a factor, because so many more people like Sheamus than don't like him, and I think that's really cool how so many people have different opinions when it comes to wrestling, especially with the social media campaign blowing up in the way it has, with Instagram becoming a big thing, Twitter, of course, blowing up all the time. So many people have different opinions. So many people like Sheamus, so many people don't, but I'm choosing to like Sheamus in support of what needs to really be happening for someone like him, because I think taking him out of the main event is really ridiculous when he should be someone who should be being treated far better than what he is. He obviously was over at certain points in his career, and I think also what it has to do with, too, so many new names coming into WWE, like Samoa Joe, who I'm waiting on to come over from NXT, AJ Styles, who was really high. Even if you wanted to, you could take 4 wrestlers who are on WWE right now, like Y2 AJ, Chris Jericho and AJ, and 2 other wrestlers like the Usos. Say Y2 AJ and the Usos facing the team of the League of Nations, Sheamus, Rusev, King Barrett, and Alberto Del Rio. You don't even have to have them be champions, and you can have something happen in the way of an 8-man tag team match. You don't have to have Alberto Del Rio be U.S. champion or Sheamus be WWE champion, but it looks a lot better than seeing the League of Nations on the pre-show of WrestleMania, which would obviously be on the network for over 2 hours, facing the Social Outcasts. A match with, say, something like Y2, AJ, and the Usos, which have nothing going on right now at this point in time for WrestleMania, at least not now that we can confirm for you, unless The Rock factors in and they team up with the Usos to face the New Day in a 6-man tag team match, The Rock and the Usos facing the New Day, which I've been banking on for a while and thinking about for a considerable amount of time. Let's see something like Y2, AJ, and the Usos facing the League of Nations, because it looks a lot better than having something stupid happen on the pre-show when you have these guys in the main event, especially with how they were in the main event at the beginning of January for the first few weeks of 2016. I know it's only early in the year and something could happen more promising for the League of Nations, which I'm hoping does, and probably by May or June something more promising will be looking up for the League of Nations, but, you know, something should be happening this close out of WrestleMania with not that much star power going into WrestleMania. I mean, Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker says it all. When you have that as your main event of WrestleMania, you kind of got to wonder, you know, what's really going on, you know, what can be done to correct what's happening here, and who can you pay a substantial amount of money, even if you have to pay out in the 6 figures, to make up for a match like Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker. Roman Reigns versus Triple H is not going to do it. It's not going to make me more excited for WrestleMania than I already am, or not excited for WrestleMania, and to be honest with you, I'm not really excited for this year's WrestleMania. If I'm interested in any of the matches, it would obviously have to be Triple H and Roman Reigns, which I know could go the way of Roman Reigns winning the championship or Triple H retaining, which is probably the more likely way it will go, because if Shane McMahon comes out of the way of the match with The Undertaker somehow, with control of WWE, having Triple H as champion in the fall of the WrestleMania and Shane in control, with Triple H and Stephanie's future being in question, with Triple H still as champion, that seems to make more sense to me in the fall of the WrestleMania 32, especially with Seth Rollins returning by the summer, the lateral part of this year. That's the match I'm more interested in, more so than a match between Shane McMahon and The Undertaker, which I know is going to go the way, obviously, of Shane McMahon winning some way or somehow because of interference from the likes of Sting, which could happen at this year's WrestleMania, because Sting has yet to have that career-defining moment. A Hall of Fame induction for me, yeah, it does it some way, but in more ways than enough that I'm not giving credit to it. It doesn't really do anything for me, because I still think Sting needs to have that career-defining moment. He could be what the highlight is of this year's WrestleMania, from going in the Hall of Fame to being involved somehow in the match between Shane McMahon and The Undertaker. There's really nothing this year at WrestleMania, which is why I'm really frustrated, extremely frustrated over how the League of Nations were taken out of the main event picture and replaced by people that they are being replaced by. I mean, Shane McMahon is not your answer in 2016, no matter how blunt and obvious he is about the ratings being low and how Triple H and Stephanie McMahon are all to blame. If you want to blame anybody, don't blame Triple H and Stephanie. Blame WWE Creative, who have been blamed more times over the years than you can shake a stick at or probably even remember as a wrestling fan. I remember the early thousands and how critical we were of WWE Creative, and by 2004, 2005, we were blaming Freddie Prinze Jr. for everything going wrong in WWE. I mean, he's not getting it done in 2016. That's pretty obvious. And we need to start signing new writers, and we need to start signing writers who are far more creative than the writers we have. So don't blame Stephanie, Triple H, not even Vince and Shane. Blame WWE Creative for writing the storylines the way they have been, and why people like the League of Nations are continuously suffering, who don't need to be suffering here in 2016, especially when it's supposed to be about the new talent initiative. I'll go for Reigns being in his second WrestleMania main event against someone like Triple H rather than Brock Lesnar, because Brock Lesnar killed Reigns in a no-holds-barred match at WrestleMania before Seth Rollins got involved the way he did, making the match more unpredictable. But we knew, even with how unpredictable the match was looking to be, with Seth Rollins facing Randy Orton earlier in the night at WrestleMania 31 the way he did. I watched that match so many times over with how Rollins lost to Randy Orton with the best RKO being pulled out by Randy Orton in his career. And that goes back to Randy Orton, being in matches for WrestleMania, and John Cena being in matches for WrestleMania. I mean, with the best RKO of his career, you kind of want to see Randy Orton in the main event of WrestleMania this year, or in some kind of main event level match at WrestleMania this year. Without Randy Orton, John Cena, and Seth Rollins, after the performances they gave us last year at WrestleMania in the matches for WrestleMania this year, it kind of puts pressure on WWE to come through this year with WrestleMania, which is why I think the League of Nations are desperately needed, and needed more than they are ever given credit for being needed. But hopefully something will factor in to benefit them beneficially here in 2016, because it's really, really needed. I know it's only early in the year and we still have a long way to go, but I think something really needs to happen before it is too late, and hopefully it's not too late to do something for people like Sheamus, King Barrett, Rusev, and Alberto Del Rio, who all were champions at some point in time, regardless if it was WWE Champion, Intercontinental, US Champion, Tag Team Champions. Put the tag team titles on the League of Nations if you have nothing for them. That's far more creative than having them feud with the Social Outcasts. The only one out of the Social Outcasts who could be getting over, in my opinion, is Bo Dallas, because Bo Dallas is over. If you want to talk about someone in the Social Outcasts who is over, with the t-shirts, the dog tags, the merchandise, the photos on Twitter, the videos being tweeted and shared at Twitter, and Bo Dallas, it is Bo Dallas, because of the fan response he's been getting. He's obviously over, and WWE are denying he's probably over more than what Daniel Bryan is at this point. If you want to create a substitution for Daniel Bryan's retirement, it is Bo Dallas and the Bo Leave movement that's moving over to WWE, because we have more Bo Leavers out there than are ever given credit for. So he's obviously over. Out of the 4 or 5 individuals making up the Social Outcasts, it isn't Curtis Axel to me, it isn't even Adam Rose and this Variety Express or whatever he calls it. The thing is, the guy who's over from the Social Outcasts is Bo Dallas, and it's going to be a long time before we see WWE giving him the benefit of the doubt and giving him credit for being over as much as what he is, with the merchandise, the t-shirts, the photos, and the videos being shared on Twitter at Bo Dallas. You can follow him by